Dear viewers, welcome to Season 2 of Enforce Tac TV, live from Enforce Tac 2023 here at Nuremberg. Together with me is Edwin from BUSCH PROtective. Edwin, how's it going?
Good. No, can't complain.
How do you like the show so far? It's a very young show. It's only been open for 2 hours, but how is your experience so far?
I have the impression that it is ever growing. It's getting bigger and bigger by the year, right? And it's busy as hell. So I really like it.
And the energy of the people. You can see people are eager to show their products.
Absolutely.
One of them is you, and today we are going to talk about your company, BUSCH PROtective, that has a very rich history in protective helmet systems. But please, for those people who have not heard about your company, what are you guys all about?
So our company, BUSCH PROtective, was established 40 years ago. So it's a second generation family-owned company, basically.
Okay.
And we are mostly working in law enforcement. So I would say 100% focus on law enforcement. And we try to produce the best protective quality in helmets that we can for those particular teams.
And when we talked earlier, you told me that, I think it was around 2014, that you made the decision to focus on law enforcement only.
Correct.
And I, of course, made the mistake, oh, you mean law enforcement and military? And he said, no, law enforcement only.
Yeah.
Please explain to our viewers, why is this so niche and why is this such a particular topic to focus on?
So, I mean, you're completely right. Most of our customers don't understand. They're like, ballistic helmets, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
So every ballistic helmet is the same. And it's actually not. So military standards are way different from standards for law enforcement purposes. So
Okay.
first of all, in military, I'm more focused about explosions, fragments, these kind of things. Maybe blunt impact due to vehicle movements or something like that. In law enforcement, usually what we see is shorter duration of time. So we see 45 to 1 hour, how do you say, like operations.
Yes.
And then we focused on CQC, so ballistic performance and especially trauma prevention is the main thing we're looking into in a law enforcement environment.
So what you're saying is that law enforcement is a particular niche because there are different scenarios
Correct.
over the day that a law enforcement officer might run into.
Correct.
As you mentioned CQC, that means very short distances of ballistic impacts, maybe.
Yes.
You have a very, very special ballistic certification.
Yes. So this is our flagship helmet, the AMP-1TP, and it is certified to the NIJ VPAM, which is known in Europe, and also the new DOJ standard.
Which I didn't even know. It's very fresh.
And nobody knows about this standard because the industry is not talking about it because it's really difficult to actually be certified to this standard.
But you guys are certified.
Correct. So we have been certified in 2019, which was also the year when the standard was established.
Okay.
And basically it was the DOJ, so the FBI and the DEA working together and trying to create a new standard that gives more protection for their officers. They were not happy with the results they have seen from shooting NIJ tested helmets because it's important to know that most helmets are not certified to an NIJ standard because there is no real certification. And they have seen that especially close edge shots and trauma, so the blunt impact from the ballistic impact
Yes.
that goes into your head is very important, and that this is going to be limited. So they then developed this new standard.
So basically, you could say, would it be correct to say that that is a more realistic approach to ballistic deformation inside the helmet?
Right. I have to maybe give you a couple of information in terms of NIJ. So usually what you see in NIJ is basically penetration resistancy. So a helmet is tested against 9mm and 44 Magnum in 4 distinctive areas. So we have the front, the back, and the 2 sides. So as a helmet manufacturer, I know exactly where to strengthen my helmet just to stop those calibers.
Okay, and get certified.
And then get tested and tested according to certification. But in a real-life scenario, you can imagine shots can come from every angle and every direction, and especially shots can be placed very close to the helmet edge, especially in the frontal area, because that is usually the area that is, is predominantly seen when you enter a building or
Yes.
a room or something like that. So that was the main thing.
Does that also include, because I was always wondering, All right, it is certified, and all right, a bullet might hit here and here. What about maybe it hits a screw?
Correct.
Or anything like this?
So again, and you hit the nail on the head. So we have blunt impact, we have edge performance, and we have the ballistic screw, which is very important. So basically you can say a helmet certified to the VPAM or to the DOJ standard gives you ballistic protection from 20 millimeters from the helmet edge everywhere on the helmet surface.
Everywhere.
Plus, and this is also very important, and not only takes into consideration ballistic impact, but it also takes into consideration real blunt impact scenarios where, for example, you run into a pole or you fall and you hit your head against a curbstone or something like that. Therefore, the blunt impact performance of the helmet is also tested and needs to be certified as well.
So when we're talking about the AMP-1TP, which is basically your flagship helmet, now we're talking about a CQC scenario, and that's why we're talking about ballistics. But what if an officer might run into a CQC scenario, but later in the day he's facing a totally different scenario, like for example a demonstration on the streets. There's a lot of them currently. How does your product achieve modularity and upscalability within seconds? How do you guys do this?
Correct, and modularity is key here. So, and that's probably the word we use most, modularity. Our helmets are so modular, and we see that with other helmet manufacturers as well.
It gets thrown around a lot in
exactly.
the
So modularity is key, but I think this system is really one of the most modular systems you can find out there, because you can start with a very basic, so to say, ballistic helmet that only gives you the ballistic performance where the helmet actually is, but now you can top it up with a ballistic visor or a non-ballistic visor. So for those CQC operations, I may want to have a ballistic visor just to give myself a little more ballistic protection.
But I don't want to carry it around all day because it's also heavy.
Correct. So I want to get rid of it. The moment I realize I don't need that level of protection anymore, I want to get rid of it. But in a scenario where all of a sudden I have a crowd in front of me and now I need to protect myself against liquids or thrown objects, I can just click in a riot visor and I'm good to go. Also, what you can see here is a combination of a fragment visor and a ballistic mandible. So this mandible, for example, is blunt impact tested, but also tested against 9mm rounds and fragments. So it gives you the same level of ballistic protection as the helmet and further increases the ballistic surface of your helmet.
What I see is that basically you have a platform that can be customized to fit any needs, a scenario that law enforcement, and law enforcement specifically, might run into without basically having to wear everything all the time because it gets heavy on the neck. Everyone knows that helmets, they are comfortable for about 10 minutes and then...
Correct. And nobody likes to wear a helmet.
Exactly.
And that's exactly that. So we want to make sure that the helmet is light enough so people are using it and are not constantly thinking about their helmet, but about the operation they're actually working in. But also, we made it in such a way that while you're using your helmet, you can get rid of all the accessories. So you can just take off the mandible or put it on, and you don't never need to take off the helmet, because obviously taking off the helmet and then putting the accessory on, that wouldn't work.
When we talk about modularity in the industry, we often talk about the helmet as a platform.
Correct.
But what the industry sometimes appears to neglect is that, well, now I got the helmet, now I got the platform, but I might not be in an actual scenario all day. I might spend the day training. And now we're making the transition to force-on-force training, because then usually what happens is, dude, you got your cool helmet here, but please take this off because we have these protective helmets. Now we're going to work in this. And basically you have a whole different system. The setup is different. It looks different. It feels different. And also from my personal experience, I can say force-on-force can be a pain in the ass because everything fogs up. You have a very narrow field of use because you usually have a visor. Maybe under the visor you even have glasses protected. You have a strong chin protection. There you guys come into play with the CMT, I believe.
CTM1, correct.
With the CTM1, I apologize.
Yes. So this is actually the CTM1. So again here, as a helmet manufacturer, we solely focus on ballistic and helmet or head protection in that sense.
Okay.
So, and that makes it unique too, because we have seen lots of force-on-force training systems that were more of an afterthought than anything else. So that was not really like, oh, let's make the best force-on-force protective helmet and now put it out there.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we already have the ammunition. Now let's come up with a protection. So, and that is exactly the other way around for us, because we said, all right, we have the AMH2 as our blunt impact non-ballistic helmet system, which is very comparable to our ballistic helmet. So it comes in the same size, it comes with the same inside equipment. So using those both helmets, it feels very similar. Obviously, the weight is different.
Obviously.
But now you have the opportunity to just click in the visor. You have the opportunity to click in the transparent mandible and also the textile collar to give you that extra protection that you need in a force-on-force scenario.
So I'm going to talk a lot about my experience on force-on-force, and you are going to pick up and say, all right, this is why we built this feature, because this actually prevents this. When I did force-on-force, I already mentioned it, I was so clothed up that everything was fogging up, all right? So there's like, you are breathing extremely because you're having a lot of stress, you're seeing not a lot. For example, let's stay with the vision, all right? My field of view is now awesome. If I wear a helmet, usually it's a bit more narrow, but it's nothing like this, all right? But sometimes, as I experience stress, my vision goes even smaller naturally.
Of course.
Now you guys came up with a big visor that seems to prevent all of this. Please go inside.
So I would describe other solutions more like tank solutions, where it's like I can see everything right in front of me, but I have no vision what happens in my peripheral vision.
Exactly.
And this is very important here. So we have a pretty wide visor and also the transparent mandible that gives me almost natural field of view, so I know exactly what's happening, and that's very important. Awareness in training is very important, otherwise I don't have that experience.
To make the most of the training also.
Correct, because as we talked already, it's not like you do a training on a daily basis. It's that one time a year or twice a year that you do a training, and you want to get most out of it. So our system is exactly there for those experiences and to enhance those training experiences. So first of all, you have a great view out of your system, and as we already discussed, you can also see the person inside the helmet system, which is very important too.
Which is a big point that so many people seem to not think about. First of all, if you are my scenario teammate, I can identify you in the scenario. Oh, it's Edwin, it's not the guy I'm looking for, or maybe it's not the guy I need to shoot, or it's not a hostage, or whatever. I can identify you.
Correct.
But furthermore, I can see, how's Edwin doing? Is he stressed out? Because I can actually see his face. Is he focused? Is he ready to go into the next room?
Correct.
Or does he maybe need a second more? Also, force-on-force training is usually accompanied by trainers who now, and instructors, who now also have the possibility to look the student in the face, because there's space to see the face of the student and read them.
And it's also, I think it's also important from a safety and medical standpoint, because obviously you talked about stress, you talked about, high pulse, people are running around. It's obviously always getting hot when you are training and your body is moving. You want to make sure that all your trainees are actually in good shape.
Exactly.
And none of them are, just passing out or something like that. So that's also important here. So every trainer can see, all right, that guy is still good, or that girl is still good, let's continue. So that's a huge factor as well. But one more thing that from my point of view is very important, this system is made for simunition. It's also made for paintball training. You can also use it for training with a taser, for example. But because that is a huge thing too. Usually you have different systems for all those different weapon systems.
It is true.
And now the trainer is coming up and saying, hey, I have this helmet. and now we're doing training, guess what? Everybody already knows, oh, now we're training on simunitions, or now we're training on tasers, so you don't have that effect of, surprise. Is that person actually trained, or does he already know the equipment and therefore knows what is happening next?
Exactly, so I can almost anticipate what the scenario is going to be because I know how the person who might be interacting with me is equipped.
Exactly, yep.
So there's two more things I want to focus on. When I did Force on Force, everything was fogging up because there was no way of air circulation whatsoever.
Right.
But we also know that the neck is a very delicate area.
Correct.
That needs to be protected, especially with simunition, for example, because you can actually take away quite serious injuries.
Yep.
But at the same time, you need some air circulation. How did you guys solve this?
So first of all, we included a mesh up down here, so that gives a little bit of natural ventilation, especially with our AMH2. But it's important to note as well that this training system is applicable on all our ballistic helmets. So you can use it on a full cut AMP1TP, for example, because that's the helmet you're using as a team. Great, because your training experience needs to be as close to a real life scenario as possible.
Train
so we want to make sure, train as you fight. We want to make sure that you can use your system on your day-to-day, on your daily driver, let's say. So, but the other thing is, you can just open the visor.
I was going to ask this because it's so important because Force on Force training is usually a very concise period of time.
Right.
Then, all right, you take a pause. Yep. But taking everything off and on almost takes up all your pause time.
Correct.
How did you guys solve this?
So we separated, as I said earlier already, so we separated the mandible from the visor. That gives us the opportunity to just quickly open the visor a little bit and close the visor in a scenario where I need a little more ventilation. And actually, our team came up with this because they said, and some of them are actually motorcyclists, and they said, while I'm at the traffic light, I'm opening up my visor and giving me a little bit of breathing time, and that's exactly what you can do here. Just pop up the visor, let the ventilation or let the air flow a little bit, and then you're good to go for your next training session.
We see that also with people in the field working with ear protection, all right? Once there's a little bit of pause, people pop them just to get some air on their ears, and of course you want to have fresh air on your face also because it's a very delicate area as well. It is. Edwin, I could go on, but we have more to talk about.
Sure.
We are, as we already mentioned, all right, highly modular, highly scalable to any situation that might appear.
Right.
Kind of emergent threat that we've kind of observed over the last, couple of years is there's more and more lasers coming involved into maybe on demonstrations, maybe people who want to mess with officers or even like trying to injure them heavily. Lasers have become a threat, and you guys, of course, as I know you now, have provided a solution. Please go into this.
So we have seen this. So first of all, we are working internationally. So we work on in many different countries, and that gives us also the opportunity to see certain trends that are emerging. For example, in South America or in Asia as well, we have seen that. Individuals are now buying laser systems online because they're inexpensive and they have a lot of energy.
They're strong.
They're really strong. So with a cheap, let's say 60, 70 euro laser, you can harm somebody from a distance of 200, 250 meters.
Yes.
And you can imagine 250 meters, I will never catch that person because it's just way too far away. But that person can really hurt me and put me, ideally, for that person at least, put me out of my duty and I can't operate anymore. So what we came up with is a visor system that clicks into your frontal area of your helmet. So you have a little bit of a helmet frame down here, which is almost invisible as long as the system is not attached. It adds, in this stage, maybe 10, 15 grams to the helmet system, so you can't even feel it. It doesn't really matter. And now you have the chance to just click in the visor system like this, and you can change between different colors. So this, for example, is our broadband laser system for green, red, and blue lasers.
Why is this so interesting?
Well, there are lots of lasers out there.
There's like a trillion colors, but when you go into it, it seems like, all right, there's always a red one, there's always a blue one.
Yeah. So those three are the most common, and then we're actually working with a visor manufacturer here. So we came up with that system, but that lens system is from another visor manufacturer.
Okay.
And we have seen that a broadband visor system gives us most protection, but at the same time still transmits enough light so I can use it in a dark or also in a light scenario.
Okay, and so you guys identified, all right, these are the most common lasers.
Correct.
And you brought a visor that is likely to protect against these lasers that appear to be the most common. Because as far as I understand, light, that's a whole different physics, and each light that have different waves, so you have to basically, there's no visor that fits against every laser on the market, but you guys made it possible because you fix against the most common lasers.
Correct. But also, as you have seen, you can click off the system quite easily. So if you know that in your area, for example, there's a particular laser used more often, then we also have more unique laser systems for that particular customer. And yes, there is a visor out there that helps against all the lasers, which would be
pure black.
Pure black, exactly. But that's not really practical. You can't really use it. So, but apart from laser, again, we have clear just for spray or just eye protection.
Yes.
We have smoke. For scenarios where you have maybe a breaching scenario.
Yes.
Light outside, you breach the door, you get in, now it's dark, your eyes need to adjust, you just take off the smoke and then your eyes can adjust a little bit easier.
Yes.
And also we have yellow just to lift up the contrast a little more in scenarios where, snow scenarios, alpine scenarios where you need a little more contrast.
Edwin, for those people who are now had the epiphany, dude, there's a helmet system that actually fits all our needs, that is law enforcement, focused, centered, highly modular, upscalable within seconds for the needs that any scenario our officer might run into, actually protects them.
Right.
Where can they find you?
Well, they can find us here at Enforce Tac, obviously. We are in Hall 9. I think we're in booth 378.
Exactly.
But also online. Obviously, we have a website that's busch-protective.com. There you can find a contact form and get in touch with us, and we will reach out as quickly as we can. And I think we are already working in 30 plus countries, so I think, find the right person to get in touch with you.
So, you guys know what to do. Edwin, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could go on for hours.
I would love to.
But as you know, time is precious. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time behind the screens. If you're interested, please stay tuned for more videos from Enforce Tac TV Season 2, live from Messe Nuremberg in 2023. It's also the 10th anniversary of Enforce Tac, and we are happy to have you as a viewer.